welcome to Henry County Schools. You are here for substitute training. My name is Jamie Atkinson, and I'm going to be going through this booklet right here with you. So if you can look in your folder, you'll find the substitute teacher guide, so just grab that out. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I am going to kind of go through it, talk about it, and just kind of give some pointers and things like that. So if you have a pen, you want to take some notes, that's fine, or if you just want to listen, that's fine too. So we're going to start out with just the responsibilities and guidelines as a substitute teacher. The goal of having a substitute teacher is so that when you walk into class, those students, their same daily routines, their things that they are used to doing every day, those things will still happen, still be fulfilled, so that there's not a huge difference in how things are ran that day. And so that depends on you as the substitute teacher to be able to walk into the classroom and to take over the duties of the teacher. You may not know every single thing that you need to know, but that's okay. You're going to have help, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. At the beginning of the school day, just report to the office. It may be a school that you're used to going to all the time, but then you may one day get a call from a school that you've never subbed at before. And so you just always, no matter if you're used to subbing there or if you're not, always start out at the front office. The secretaries, they'll have you to sign in, and they'll probably give you some kind of badge or something like that. So just make sure that you report to the office, because they're also going to give you a class roster, and that class roster will be very helpful because you need to know the students that you have in class. But also, if there's a fire drill or anything like that, you're going to need to take that with you so that you can make sure all your students are accounted for. Okay, and so always try to report to your first class on time. Now, there may be times they may call you at the last minute and you're running late. Then they're going to have someone covering that class until you get there. But if you're in the building, make sure that you're where you're supposed to be when it's time for the students to arrive. Especially at the high school, because at high school, every teacher, they teach blocks. They may have a planning period, and then they have other blocks. So you just need to make sure when the tone sounds, you're at that classroom ready for those students to come in. And then the next thing would be review safety procedures. So when you walk into the classroom, just start looking around to see. Especially your younger grades, they may have big posters hanging up to remind the students what to do. Now, most of our schools have safety procedure folders. I know at Grove they're all orange, and there's a folder and it says safety procedures really big, and they're either by the teacher's desk or by the door. Those are supposed to be posted, so all the other schools should have those as well somewhere, and they just may be a different color. And so when you walk in, look for that and take a minute to thumb through it and see, okay, if we have a fire or a fire drill, where do I take these students? Or if it's a tornado or a tornado drill, where is our safety location? You need to know those things, because there's many times we have fire drills at least once a month, and there's other things that can happen, and if you're not prepared, then you're not going to know. Now, most of the time, your students should be prepared and know what to do, but you are the leader in that situation, so take time to look through that as well. If you are in a special education, like the extended resource classes, you may have heard them called CDC, but those are more severe students that need more one-on-one assistance. So in an emergency situation, their evacuation or their safety plans may be different than what the other school is used to doing. So you need to make sure that you are familiar with what their needs are. Now, you're not going to be in there by yourself, because there should be an assistant or someone in the class or another teacher next door to where you can ask them questions when you come in. If you have students that are needing one-on-one, you're probably going to have a teacher assistant with you anyways throughout the day. Or you may be subbing for an assistant and have the teacher in there. So either way, there's going to be more than one person in that classroom. The next thing that we need to look at is reviewing the lesson plans. Now, when you walk in, go ahead and look through the lesson plan. Go ahead and start looking at it to see what you're going to be doing throughout the day. That way, if you have any questions, you can ask one of the other teachers. Now, the reason I say ask another teacher is because the teachers, they have PLC meetings once a week, and what that means is they meet with their content area or their grade level, all those teachers, once a week. And when they meet with those teachers, then they are going to talk with them about the lesson plans for the whole week. And when they do that and they talk with them, then they might not all be doing the exact same things, but they're doing the same concepts. So let's say you get into class and you're not sure exactly how to do this certain concept, then other teachers should be able to help you through that. Or let's say it was an emergency situation and the teacher woke up that morning, was not expecting to be out, and they didn't really leave you any lesson plans, then that's where your other teachers come in, because you can call them or talk to them, and when you do that, then they can bring you what their lesson plan is for the day, so that you have something to do that the students are ready for and used to working with. So use those teachers and ask them for assistance, because they're used to that, and that's what they're there for. Confidentiality, that's something that's very big. That's something that you're going to hear every teacher talk about. If they don't talk about it, they've got it right here, because they know confidentiality is huge when you work in the school system, especially if you're working with students with disabilities. So you're gonna come across things throughout the day that's funny. I mean, students are they do things that you just can't help, but you want to tell somebody about a funny situation that happened. That's okay. Go home and tell your family about that funny situation. Just leave out the name of the student. Leave out details to where you're not telling them pretty much who the student is without using a name. But if you want to tell them about a funny situation, that's one thing. But going home and telling details about a student or about their needs or about things that happen that has to do with a disability and things like that. Those are things you always want to avoid. Another thing with that is there's going to be many times you're out in the community, and these kids are going to get to know you, and so they may run up and tell their parent, "Hey, this was my teacher today," and the parent may say, "Oh, how did it go?" And that simple little conversation starter can lead into something that you don't want to get into. So if they start asking you these questions, and then all of a sudden they start turning it, "Well, I heard that little Johnny said something to little Susie today. Did that happen?" And that's something that you cannot go into, and you just have to say, "You know what? I really can't tell you if it did or didn't happen. I'm not at liberty to say that. But if you have a question, you can contact the teacher, or you can contact the school and ask, and they can talk to you about it." So just do not get in those conversations, because it's really easy to do out in the public. You could simply be at Walmart and a situation come up to where it's a simple, "Hey, how are you?" and then it just kind of leads into. So just know that don't talk about even that student other than, "Well, yeah, we had a good day." But if it's something that goes into their work or their abilities or behavior, just tell them they need to talk to the teacher. Okay, so reviewing specific information in the substitute folder. You may have students that have things like a behavior plan, where they may have situations that have to be followed, like if they start to get upset, then we know, okay, first of all, we have to walk to them and talk to them in a quiet voice and redirect. And then it may be giving them a simple token reward if they do something next that they were supposed to do. Or if they start to get upset, it may be a simple, "Well, let's go back here and talk and calm down." And their behavior plan will have all that written out. And that should be left for you. But there again, confidentiality. Make sure that if that's left for you, that you're not sharing any of that information with anyone else. And just think about if that was your child, you would not want someone talking about that information. That information is only to be used for you in the classroom to help that student to be successful for that day. In the classroom, all substitute teachers shall assume the duties of a regular teacher. There again, you're going to have those same duties. You're responsible for that class that day. So there may be things that you're asked to do that'll be in your guideline there. You just follow what the teacher leaves for you. If you're not sure of the daily schedule, then ask another teacher to give you a daily schedule so that you know where you're supposed to be and where your students are supposed to be and things like that. The instructions that are left for you, follow those instructions by the best of your ability. I've been in situations when I was a teacher that I would leave those instructions for a substitute to come in, and I would have students to tell me the next day, and I knew they were telling the truth because all my classes had the same thing because I taught in high school, to where the teacher would say, oh, let's not do it that way. Let me show you a different way to work this. Well, that may be good and fine, but that teacher may have already tried several ways and found the way that best helped those students. And it may be a certain procedure that she's teaching at that time or he's teaching at that time. So don't go in and just totally revamp their lessons. Now, it may be a time when you may have some students that say, you know, I really am not getting this. I'm not sure what to do on this concept. And it may be where you can ask another student to come over there and help them to teach it to them. And while they're doing that, you watch yourself so that you're learning it if you're not sure how to do it. Or you can help them. That's fine. You need to be able to differentiate, do those things, but just don't totally change their lesson plans because they have a reason for what they're doing. Let's see. You may get an evaluation at the end for you to evaluate what was left for you and how the things were went. That's okay. You don't have to fill that out, but if you want to, you can. You can leave notes for the teacher, so if there's some things you didn't understand, leave those notes and tell them, hey, I wasn't really sure about this, or, you know, this student didn't understand, so I'll let this student work with them. The teacher will appreciate you leaving those notes for them. If you get to a class and there's no plans at all, that can happen in emergency situations. So contact the office, let them know, or the teacher next door, let them know so that someone can help you get some plans for the day. Sometimes some of the schools, as far as taking attendance, you do need to take attendance. It's very important for us to know who's in your class, especially if there is a fire drill and you have to go outside, then you need to know who you should have. And each school may do that differently. I know that some of the schools, they ask their substitutes to get onto the computer, log in to Synergy, and they have a substitute login, and they do their attendance that way. Some schools, they don't want it done that way because, for one thing, there may not be computers in all the rooms because a lot of times teachers take their laptop home. And they may say, you know what, I'd rather you call the office and just tell me who's absent. Just ask them, how would you like for me to take attendance? And they'll explain that to you. Okay, maintaining classroom procedures and routines. In the past, when you were younger, you probably were used to seeing a teacher just sit behind the desk. And you would come into class and they would show you what they wanted you to do, and they would sit at their desk and you worked the entire time and they just sat there and you walked up if you had a question. That's not the case now. Teachers should not be doing that all the time. What they should be doing is interacting with their students, walking around the classroom if the students are working or up, lecturing, talking, interacting. And so there may be times they may be sitting while they're lecturing because they're at the Elmo writing notes, and that's fine too. They're still interacting with the students. And so if the students are working, walk around, because some students are shy and they're quiet. They're not going to tell you if they don't understand. But if you're walking around, you're going to see, this student over here, they're working, but that is not what they're supposed to be doing. They're not quite understanding. So then you can put a peer partner with them to help them get where they need to be, or you can sit and help them or whatever needs to be done at that time. Also, walking around helps with classroom management. A lot of times if there's a sub, they're going to try you, and they're going to see if they can get away with not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you just walking around keeps them on track. And so just that proximity of walking around is a really good thing for you to be doing. As far as marking errors on the paper, I really wouldn't suggest that a whole lot unless the teacher asks you to do that. Because many times now with our new curriculum and the things that we do not just grade right and wrong, we're grading procedure. And sometimes we don't even grade. We go through and just kind of like write ideas for them to go back and look at. So try not to do that. But now if the teacher leaves you an assignment and they say, these students need to do this bell ringer, and then after 15 minutes or whatever, then you're going to get up and you're going to put that on the Elmo and you're going to go through it and show them what they've done wrong or what, then that's fine. But if it's something they're supposed to turn in for the teacher, don't go through and grade it because the teacher may not want it marked right and wrong. Okay, so just remain with your students at all times. There may be times we get used to as a teacher of having our body on a schedule of when we can go to the bathroom and when we can't. But if you need to go to the restroom or you need to step out for an emergency, then call the office and let them send someone down there to stay with your kids until you get back. Never just leave them because if one little thing happens, you're liable if you're not in there. So just make sure you don't leave them unattended. We talked about confidentiality. If there's something that happens and you feel like someone needs to know, leave your teacher a note. Leave positive notes and negative notes. Because if you leave those positive notes, then when the teacher comes back, they're going to share those positive notes with their students. And then that just makes them want to do well for a substitute. But also, if there's some things negatively that you need your teacher to know, write that. Or if it's something you think the principal needs to know, please be sure and tell them that so that they kind of know what's happened in the classroom in case a parent calls or anything like that. If someone becomes ill or sick, so if you have a student and they come up and they just, oh, my stomach don't feel good, I think I'm going to be sick, send them to the nurse. Or, I need to see the nurse, I'm just not feeling well, or my throat hurts, or whatever. That's fine. They can go to the nurse. There's sometimes a slip for you to fill out for the nurse's slip. If you can't find that, just write it on a sticky note and sign it, and they can go that way. But now, if it's something drastically happens and they cannot leave to go, then you just call the office and they'll send the nurse to you. So just make sure you use your judgment on what needs to be done there. Okay, so the teacher has their own property in the classroom. Students know that they're not supposed to just go through the teacher's desk, but many times when the teachers are gone, students know where things are because they've seen their teachers get those things for them to use. So many times they just want to come up, they want to go through the filing cabinet, or they just want to go through the desk and get it. Don't allow that to happen because there may be things in there those students do not need to see that may pertain to another student or things like that. So just don't allow them to go through the teacher's desk or files or cabinets or anything. So that pretty much is what you're going to do during the day. When you get to the end of the day, you're going to sit down, think about the day, write your teacher some notes, negatives, positives, we got through this, or we didn't get through this, or we finished with extra time, and so then we did this. So just write those notes for them. Try to make sure you are sticking to the facts of what happened and not your personal opinions. I've seen that happen 2 times where a substitute would come in and they give their personal opinion about a student, and maybe they don't know all the facts about that student and why they were doing what they were doing or acting the way they were acting. And it may be something that it's just not good to put your own opinion in there if you don't know the full facts about that. And also, don't tell the teacher, well, your lesson would have been better if you would have done it this, this, and this. Well, we have a curriculum that we follow, and the teacher also puts their own spin on things. But the day that you come in, they may have just left what some people would call busy work because they didn't want you to have to go through and do all these big activities that they're used to doing. They were trying to make it easy for you and then give the students that additional practice that they need. So try not to critique their lessons because that's probably not their normal daily lesson plans anyway. Try to leave the classroom clean. It's not your job to sweep up and clean everything, but usually after any class leaves, you can just tell them, look around. If you see paper on the floor, pencils on the floor, pick them up, throw them away. If there's anything on the desk. Many times, they may have to put their chairs on the tables at the end of the day. Students should know those routines, but just make sure they know to clean up the floor and things like that. We don't want to leave it too messy. At the end of the day, always go back to the office. You're always going to start in the office and you're going to end in the office. That way they know that you're leaving the building and that you're not still there. Also, you should have a tag that you can turn back in, and they may want to ask you about working a different day or things like that. So always check back with them before you leave the school building. Okay, so now we're looking at tips for success in the classroom. So it's your job to follow the plans the best that you can. Criticism of the methods and plans are not appropriate. We already talked about that. Avoid classroom discussions about personal issues. Many times you may know the students that you have. You may go to church with them, or you may have a child that age that you know their parents, just things like that. It's okay to talk in general. I mean, you want to be friendly with the students, especially if, many times I would always come in and I would try to attend ball games that my kids were playing, and I would talk to them about things like that, and that's fine. I mean, you want to be able to be friendly. But if they start asking you personal questions about yourself, be careful with that. It's okay if they ask you, hey, is your son so-and-so, or do you, things like that, but they're going to sometimes take that and just keep going, and they're going to get personal to a point that they don't need to know your life. They don't need to know about you, because something you say could be twisted and turned into something else and put out there on social media, or they may go home and tell their parents that you were talking about something that you really weren't even intending to be talking about. So just be careful on that, on talking about your own personal life. And we tell that to everyone. That's with any teacher. Students who have personal problems. A lot of times you're going to have students to come in, and I call it, especially the girl drama. The girl drama in high school is usually what comes in and happens, because they're usually crying, or they're mad, or they're upset, and their whole world is falling apart, and you take them to the door, and you're talking to them in the hallway, and it could be that so-and-so was talking about me, or my boyfriend broke up with me, and you may think, oh my goodness, why are they so upset about this? Well, to them, it's a huge issue. To them, their life is falling apart. And so we have to talk to them in a caring manner, but also we can't have it to disrupt the classroom. So if you feel like that they need to talk to guidance, then you need to call the guidance office or the main office first to see if guidance can see them. Because they may not be in their office, or they may be teaching a class, and they may not need to be interrupted at that time. If that student is just really upset and just can't stay in class, then they can go to the office and talk to an administrator, and they'll figure out something for them until they can calm down and get back to class. But if a student just comes up and says, hey, I need to go to guidance, well, we need to call guidance and see, because sometimes it's just nothing big and they just want to go in there to get out of class. So always check with guidance first. Okay, greet students at the door. Some people think this is not necessary, or they think it's no big deal, but I learned over my years that it is a great way to start class. Instead of just being in the classroom busy or whatever, stand at the door, outside the door, and as they come in, good morning, how are you? You had a good day? Things like that, because those students, some of them need that. They need to see that someone cares enough to ask them, have you had a good day? Or, hey, how are you? Just making that eye contact with them. I found that over the years, I'd have a student walking up there, and I would say, hey, how are you? I'm glad you're here. You ready for class? And then they would kind of smile, and then their day would be better. So let them know that you're glad to see them, and that you're you're ready for class, and it'll just makes a more personable atmosphere in the classroom. Use an authoritative demeanor. Okay? Here's the thing. Yes, you want to go into that classroom and you want them to know I'm in charge. Okay? This is our classroom, but I'm ultimately in charge. The best thing that I was ever taught was when you walk in on the first day, they need to know that you're in charge and what you say goes. Now, does that mean you have to be, you better get up right now and you better get over there and throw that away? No, if someone talked to you like that, you wouldn't like that. It would not make you feel good. But you can be in charge and say, look, now you know that you weren't supposed to do that. Pick that up, please. Go throw that away, and let's get started. Now, that just sounds more, hey, let's work together, but I'm in charge. Okay? And so, you want to always start out in that manner. And once you learn the classroom and learn the atmosphere, you'll know if you're able to slack back a little bit. Some classrooms, you can see that you can slack back just a little bit, but then there's some that you have to stay that way the entire time. So always go in that way and then gauge it to see, but don't be, I'm just going to say, don't be mean and hateful, okay? You can be strict and do it in a level-headed way. All right, here's another thing. A lot of times you walk into a classroom and you know none of them. You don't know their names. You don't know what to call them, how to direct them to get their attention. So if you don't, just say, okay, I want everybody to get out a piece of paper or pass out a piece of computer paper or construction paper and tell them to fold it. And have them write their name on it. If you want to let them decorate it, that's fine. And then they're going to sit that on their desk and there's a nameplate. That way you can then look over there and you can say, oh, and you could call on little Johnny and say, Johnny, why don't you tell us what you think about this question? How would you answer that? And that way you're calling them by name and you're engaging the class. So that's always appropriate. That's fine to do that. Seating arrangements, a lot of times your teachers may leave you a seating arrangement. When the students may just come in and they know what their seat is and they may just go and sit down and they know that's where they're supposed to be, but sometimes they're going to try you. And so if they have a seating arrangement there, that's a good way to call roll. Just call roll by that seating arrangement. And then the students know, oh, they know I'm supposed to be sitting here. And so just that's a good way too for you to, if you need to know their name, you can look down and then you know who they are. It says keep a file of time fillers. What that means is sometimes a teacher will leave a lesson that normally takes them the entire time, but because they're not there and they're not filling in all that extra information that they have up here that they're used to filling in, the students may finish early. They may finish 15 or 20 minutes early, and you don't want to just say, we are finished, you have 20 minutes of free time. You don't want to do that. Classroom management, it can get out of control. And so if you have some extra little things that you can do, even if it's not exactly geared toward the concepts they're learning, just something to keep them engaged will be a big asset to you, and also it gets their mind going as well. We'll talk about some of them because there's some things in here, so we'll talk more about that as we go. Teach students a signal. That means stop, look, and listen. It may be simply just going over and turning off the lights and they know they'll look because they're not used to that. Or it could be simply just raising your hand and say, okay, it's my turn. Everybody look at me. It's my turn to talk. Things like that. Just have something to where you can get their attention and they know, okay, I need to be quiet and listen to the next direction. The next thing talks about practice and how if the teacher leaves you things to teach and engage, things that you can do. And you've probably heard this called I do, we do, you do. What that means is this. I do is the teacher, okay? I do is the person in charge. So you may get up here, you may be sitting up here at the Elmo, and you may be working a problem for them. But if you're doing that, talk through it as you're going. Let them hear what you're thinking, okay? For instance, I taught algebra. So I may have an equation with variables on both sides, and I may say, okay, so let's look at this problem. And the first thing I see is, I see a variable on the right, I see a variable on the left. What am I going to do to get those on the same side? Things like that. And so then I have to ask myself that. And I'm going to ask it out loud so that they know that it's okay to have that thought process and what to say and what to think and what to do. So you're doing all that out loud. So that's the I do. Then the we do is where then you're saying, okay, let's do this together. So I have this problem, and who can tell me what's the first question I need to ask myself? Oh, let me hear your thoughts. Well, can someone add to what they just said? And things like that. So you're doing it together as a we do as you're working. And then the you do is the students. You're telling them, now you're going to do this, and you're going to work on your own for independent work. So the I do was the instruction, the we do was the guided practice, and the you do is the independent practice. Even if that independent practice is partner work, it's still independently. It's not you guiding them through every step. Okay, so that's kind of how your classroom should be handled when you're going through those things. Okay, so our next thing is just engaging students. When you were younger, your teacher probably asked a question. Everybody raised their hand. One got called on, they answered. We try to get out of that. Sometimes that's still appropriate, but that's not the norm. The norm is going to be, a lot of times, is, okay, here's our question. I want you to think for a minute on your own. Then I want you to turn to your table partner, discuss it, and then we're going to come together and we're going to talk about it. Or it could be something like, I want you to think about it, write it on a scrap piece of paper, so that you're writing your ideas out, and then we're going to start discussing it, and we're going to throw out the ideas that we have. Some rooms have the little individual whiteboards. We used to use those a lot, and students really like that because then you could say, okay, here's your question. I want you to work it out. Hold on to it. And then everybody's going to show me at one time without looking around, and then I can easily assess and say, you missed one step. Go back and look at that again. Things like that. The more you engage the students, the better it is for your classroom climate. Circulate throughout the room and monitor the students. That's what we were talking about earlier. Even if they're working in groups, walk around and listen. Just listen to what they're talking about. Listen to their ideas. For one thing, to make sure they're really working. They're not talking about what they did last night or what they're going to do this weekend. Okay, so walk around and just monitor. Some students learn better by seeing, so they need to see you work it. Some need to hear you as you're thinking through your process. And others need to be involved. They need to be doing something. They need to have a manipulative and doing something. So try to incorporate all those things as you're thinking about what you're doing. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is discipline. We're going to treat all students with respect. Even if a student walks in with a chip on their shoulder, or you think they have a chip on their shoulder, it may just be their personality. We're going to treat them all with the same respect. Sometimes you have a student that comes in, they're having a bad day, and they may disrespect you. But just because they do that doesn't give us the right as an adult to disrespect them back, because we're supposed to model the correct behavior. And so one of the things that I have always done with my students, and I felt like I always had good relationships with the majority of my students, was they may come in and have a bad day and they may snap off. And if they do, I'm not just going to snap back at them. I may say, are we having a bad day today? Do we need to, let's go out here and talk about this. But then they know after we talk about it, and they may make me a little frustrated. And we may have a strong conversation, but then after it's over, then I'm going to look at them and say, okay, so we worked past this, we're done, right? This is over with. So when we walk back in that room, we're going to act like none of that happened. Because we're done with it, and we're not going to dwell on it. Let's go back, we'll start class over, and we're done. It may be a situation that escalated to the point where they had to go to the office. Who knows, they might have even gotten ISS. But you know what? When I go and talk to them in ISS, or they walk back to my class, I'm going to look at them and say, okay, that's done with. We're done. Let's start over. And they know that was my personality. And so we all have to have that personality because we have to model that for them. So we have to show them with respect. If a student does something that's a behavior to where they're upset, do not put your hands on them. Don't walk up, pat them on the back, touch their arm. I know that's instinct, but try not to do that because some students, they feel threatened by that. They don't like to be touched. So try not to do that at any point. What I will say too is when you are talking to them, even if they are getting escalated, keep your voice calm and in an even, quiet manner so that you're not escalating them even more. Because if you're modeling that, then sometimes they will get to the point of bringing it down themselves. Okay? And also, especially when you're talking to a guy, do not stand right in front of them and just, in their face. Because men and boys usually feel that as a threat when someone's in front of them, almost like a fight or flight type thing. So I've always, if the guy's standing here, I always just kind of stood to the side and talked to them to where I could still see their face, but I'm to the side. They feel more ease when you're to the side. Now with girls, I would start out like that. A lot of times the girls would turn around and want to look at me and talk to me because they're upset. That's okay. And the guys may do that too, but try not to get close. Stay out of their, I call it your bubble. Stay out of their bubble, their hula hoop. Okay, stay outside of that so that you're not in their personal space and they don't feel threatened. It is never, 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 never appropriate for you to paddle. Never. So if it becomes an issue to where you feel like something needs to be done, then they need to be sent to the office to the administrators. The administrators are the ones that make the decisions on what discipline needs to happen. Now, if it's something in class and you get write-offs or you call a parent or something like that, that's different, but I wouldn't even really do that. I would, as a sub, I would leave those notes for the teacher and let them take care of that. Unless it's something, that you could just take care of quickly and there's something you can do, that's fine. But I would leave notes for the teacher, and if it's bad enough, have them to leave the room, and do not leave them in the hallway. Do not tell them to go to the hall, because then they're unattended. And if they're unattended and something happens, then that comes back on you as the teacher. So if you need them to leave the room, then you need to call someone to the office to come and meet them. If a child is upset and they try to bolt out the door, do not get between them and the door and try to put your hands on them to stop them. Don't do that. If they go out the door, then you call the office and you tell them you need assistance and that you had a child just go out the door. Okay, so you do not want to put yourself in harm or the student in harm as well. So really with corporal punishment, we honestly, as a school system, there's hardly ever any paddling that goes on. Matter of fact, parents actually fill out a form every year that says, yes, I agree with corporal punishment, or no, I don't. And so there's lots of parents that don't want their child paddled anyway. And even parents that do, the principals usually don't do that. It's usually lots of other things that they do instead. So just don't ever do that. Don't put yourself in that situation. Sarcasm. Sarcasm is something that when you get to know your students, you're able to use at times. I would sometimes have boys that would say something kind of smart, and I could use sarcasm back at them, and then they would just laugh it off and stop because we had that relationship. But I also knew when not to use it because I knew the students well enough that a certain student, if I said something that sounded sarcastic that maybe I thought was funny, it might hurt their feelings. So avoid using sarcasm because a lot of times they may even laugh and act like it's funny, but deep down it hurt them. Or they may go back home and say, do you know what that teacher said? Okay, so the next point, it talks about sarcasm and using your sarcasm sparingly. Many times when you, as a teacher, you get to know your student, you know when you're able to use that sarcasm and you know that how the students are going to take it. There were sometimes I had guys in the classroom, of course I taught high school, and they may say something kind of smart and pop off. And when they would, I could say something kind of sarcastic in a laughing manner, and then they would laugh and, move on, and it wouldn't escalate. There's other students I knew that I couldn't do that with, because if I said something sarcastic, they would take it to heart and think that I was saying something negative to them. And so as a substitute, not really knowing those students well, it's better not to use that sarcasm. Because sometimes the student may laugh, and everybody else may laugh, but deep down it's hurting their feelings, and they may even go home and tell their parent, do you know what they said to me today? And things like that. So just be careful in using the sarcasm. As far as comments, sometimes there are things that you need to correct a student on. So I think of this like coaching. My husband coaches, and he's the type of coach that he's constantly giving them positive directions as well. But then I've also seen where my own children have felt like they've had coaches or teachers that only told them when they've done things wrong. And so I encourage you that if you have to correct a student or show them something they've done wrong, show them some things they've done positive. Same thing if you're talking to a parent, they need to know the positives and not just the negatives. So those are some things as a teacher that we have to think about. So when you're working with those students, think about that as well. Incentives and privileges. This goes with every age group. I laugh and I tell people high school students are just elementary students in larger bodies. They enjoy the same incentives. It may be when I taught at high school level, we had a prize box just like the elementary schools did. We had a little prize box. Students got tickets. It could be one day I'll walk around and say, y'all have done a good job today on taking notes. Anybody that has their notes completed got a ticket. We didn't give a lot of homework, so we may have given 5 problems, and I might say, anybody that has their 5 problems done today, I want to see them. You're going to get a ticket. They didn't get tickets every day, and they never knew what they were getting tickets for. But then we had a prize box that had anything from candy to stuff we cleaned out at home. It could be jewelry, wallets, just anything we found. We went to conferences, we throw lanyards in there or bags in there. It was just random stuff. Books that we had read, and students loved that. It was an incentive to them to be able to go up and get something out of the box. For you could say, you know what, guys, if y'all work really hard for 30 minutes, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to just get up, walk around, and talk to your friends. 5 minutes. Where y'all can just get up and talk. Free 5 minutes. Or it may be, you know what? If y'all finish this and you do a really good job, we may get up and we may go walk down the hallway, go to the bathroom, take a lap around the school, and come back in. Things like that. Give them things to work toward because they like those incentives. Just make sure if you do leave the classroom that you contact the office and let them know that, hey, we're going to take a walk for 5 minutes and this is where we're going to be. They need to know where you are at all times. If it's a student has a behavior plan or anything like that, these students are in what we call inclusion, which means they're in the regular classes. A lot of times you may have a teacher assistant, another adult, that may just come into your room, and you may wonder, what are they doing? In the inclusion setting, sometimes there's another teacher that comes in, and they may be in there working with your students. And that's okay. They're going to come in, use them, ask them questions, work with them. You know, you have that extra hand, that extra person to help you out. So you may see that and just know that that's why they're there. Use points or letters and words that indicate the privilege or reward at the time. Like I said, a reward could be talk time. So what we were talking about a while ago, giving them a reward for working. So it's okay to do that. Okay, now we're going to talk about time fillers. If you finish and you got that extra 20 minutes or 10 minutes, you don't want to give students over 5 minutes of free time at a time, or it's going to get out of hand probably. So you need to have something to do. We've always been told, teach from bell to bell. Have them engaged from the beginning to the end. 5 minutes maybe at the end for cleanup time, okay, but not more than that. So maybe you could pick a vocabulary word out of the lesson, and we can have students do things with that. You can have them to draw a picture about it. Maybe you could take some vocabulary words and have them to play charades. Have a student get up and act out the word, and when a student, gets the word correctly, you give the next student another word. You can do things like that. Write a riddle or a word puzzle or something on the board, or you can have some printed in your bag already and say, okay, we have some extra time. I've got a riddle sheet here, and it may not have anything to do with the lesson they've learned that day, but it's a brain activity. It's something to get their minds to thinking. So you can have some things like that. Maybe an analogy. Start an analogy on the board, and then let them talk with their partners about it so that they can discuss that analogy. They can discuss how to have a deeper meaning of that, and they can talk about it as a class about what it means and things like that. If you want to preview and say, you know what, I know tomorrow y'all are going to be learning about cells, and y'all are going to start with the parts of the cells. So let's all open our book and just start looking at the cell model and just talking about the parts. You're not going to give them an assignment, but it's okay if you know what they're going to be doing the next day, to let them preview it. Or if you see on the board, on the wall over here, a lot of times you'll walk in a classroom and they'll have a word wall, and so they'll have all these vocab words up here on the wall. You could start just going through some of those words and talking about meanings of them. You could play a game and say, okay, I need 2 students to come up here. And you can tell the definition of a word. Whoever smacks the right word, then they get to stay up there, and the other person has to go and find someone else to come up. With younger students, it may just be that you're going to call out a word, and they have to slap the one that's the right word because they're learning the spelling of the words. Things like that. Okay? So you can come up with little ideas. It says, with your older students, you might have a couple different ideas and let them debate on, these are the ideas of my concept, well, this is my concept, and debate it back and forth on differences and likes and differences. Compare and contrast 2 events, situations, or characters. So let's say you're reading a book, and they're in literature class, and you can talk about 2 of the characters in the class, and they can get up and talk about, okay, what does these characters have alike? What are their differences? And you can talk about some of those things. Find the fiction. Now, this is something we used to do that had nothing to do with the academics. It was more of a get to know you. And so if it's in a class and you'd like to get to know more about your students, you could say, okay, I'm going to give you all a sticky note, and I want you to write 2 things that are true about you and 1 thing that's false, but put them in different orders. And then you can go around the room and they can tell their 3 facts. And you can guess, or you can let other people guess, which one is the fiction, which one's not true about them. And that's just a good way to get to know each other. But then you can do the same thing with concepts. You can put 2 facts and a fiction about whatever you're learning about at that time. If it's a story you read, 2 things that happened and 1 thing that didn't. Or if it's math problems, 2 that'll work correctly and 1 that's worked incorrectly. And they have to tell you which one's incorrect and why. So those are some things you can do. A ticket to leave. You'll hear a lot of times people call those exit tickets or ticket out the door. And that just means that you may, sometimes we give our students a scrap sheet of paper. We may give them a note card or just tell them to take out a piece of paper. And it could be, here's your one concept for the day. I want you to work that. You're going to turn it in so that your teacher can see how you do and if they understand and if they need to reteach or not. People sort. This is just kind of a fun little game that you could do. So you could say, okay, you, and you go stand up here by the door. You're one group. You guys right there, you're another group. And then they have to look around and figure out why you sorted them the way you sorted them. It could be simple, as if these all are wearing red and those are wearing blue. Or you can get a little bit more difficult in it and think, these students up here, let's say, those have on blue jeans. Those have on, maybe look like blue jeans, but they're really shorts. These have on khaki. I mean, it can be anything. You just get creative, but not anything that's going to be discriminating students or calling them out on anything. But, just you can play around with that. Choose a keyword or concept from the lesson and do an acrostic. An acrostic is where you take a word and you write it vertically, and then each letter you write horizontally a word that represents that. For instance, the one on here is magnet, and they write something about a magnet, a sentence or a phrase, or its properties. Another one we used to do when I was younger was your name. So my name's Jamie, so I would write it vertically. And then I'd say J, joyful. A, artistic. Okay, and you'd go through and you would write things about yourself or about the word. A mnemonic. A mnemonic is some things that, I know like the example here is using the word home for remembering the Great Lakes. Teaching algebra, one that we always use for PEMDAS was please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and that was the way for them to remember that. Another thing is movement in the classroom is always a good thing. We always want our students up and moving and not just sitting for a long period of time. We like to get their heart rate going a little bit. And so you could, if you have a computer or whatever, turn on some appropriate music, or if you have the radio or whatever, and you can say, okay, when the music's going, you got to be moving. You have to be moving. So they can be walking and moving, okay? Or with the little guys, they like to dance sometimes, so they got to be dancing. And then when the music stops, they have to stop, and then you're going to ask them a question, okay? And it could be whoever's closest to you, you're going to answer that question to them, or it could be asked a question, you all just say it out loud, or it could be something where they have to go and, find something on the wall, whatever. But always you can incorporate that movement in the classroom. The rest of this, it has some other ideas. There's some like content area vocab, some different graphic organizers that you can use if you want to. But some of the other things is just finding some things to do. I don't care. Just find something for them to do to fill that time. Like I said, if it's playing charades or take out a piece of paper and, we're going to draw about this, or we're going to write about this, or, tell me about your favorite event that's happened in your life. Just things to get them to doing something. Here's just some common questions that we've had in the past that I'm going to kind of go over. And one of the things is dress code. People ask every year, what is my dress code as a substitute teacher? Your dress code should be the same as what a teacher would wear. And so when I say that, I'm going to kind of go over the Henry County dress code. Each school may have a few little differences, and they can tell you what those differences are. But the main thing is, I'm going to go with shirts first. Of course, no hats. Can't wear hats. When you have shirts, you don't need to wear any little thin tank tops. If it's something that's a cutoff, like for instance I have this vest on, let's say I didn't have this under it, and my shirt stopped right here, that's okay because it's covering my entire shoulder. So if your shoulder's covered, it's okay for your arm to show. You don't want anything cut low. It needs to cover here because as a teacher, you're going to be bending over helping students. So I always had tank tops that I wore under all of my shirts so that when I bent over, I still had something covering me at all times. Guys, you can wear a t-shirt if it's appropriate, a polo. There's nothing specific on that, as long as it's nice. Pants, any kind of khakis, casual pants is fine. Now, blue jeans are school dress codes. Usually on Fridays you can wear blue jeans if you have on some type of school-related or Patriot shirt or whatever. But so blue jeans and a t-shirt or sweatshirt on Fridays is fine. Usually they don't wear blue jeans any other day of the week unless it's a ball game day or a special day, but normally Fridays. You can wear capris. Some of the schools even wear the long shorts that come to your knees. So like guys, if you're subbing in a PE class and you want to wear the long khakis that come all the way to your knees and with a polo or something, that's okay. If you're subbing in that area, ladies, especially like at Harrelson, you'll a lot of times see them, they wear the shorts that come all the way to their knee, like the long walking shorts with a school shirt or something. And that's okay. Just not blue jean shorts, but like the long khaki ones that have to come all the way down to your knee. As far as shoes go, there's really not a preference on that. You wear shoes that are comfortable. Tennis shoes are fine. Dress shoes are fine. Sandals are fine as long as you look professional. When I first started, I was young when I first started in the school system, and I had a principal to tell me, I'm not going to tell you exactly what you can wear every day, but you need to know that when you walk into the school, that you don't look like a student. Okay? If you wear the same things as a student, I'm not saying you can't wear something you've seen a student wear, but when you walk in, people need to look at you and differentiate between a student and a staff member, because when they look at you, they need to see professional. Okay? So that's really the main thing on dress code. Some of your schools may have more specifics, and you can ask them as you go to that school. Information on emergencies, lockdowns, weather issues, early dismissal, any of those things, your drills, all that should be in your safety folder when you walk into the classroom. If you do not see a safety folder, then you need to ask a teacher nearby about the safety procedures and where they are so that you can be looking over those when the students are working or when you have time to do so. I know you don't have a lot of time to familiarize yourself with emergency exits and the bathrooms and the nurse's office and all that time because you're trying to get there. If you want to ask a student, hey, come up here and just kind of tell me a little bit about, where do y'all use the restroom at, and where, if y'all have a fire drill, where do you normally go? You can ask the student things. If you're looking for things in the room and you're not sure where they are, it's okay to ask the student. Okay? They want to be of help. As far as classroom management techniques, the main thing, like I said earlier, is just that proximity. Staying close and seeing what's going on. Don't just sit at your desk and read a book or something while they're working. You need to be up, moving around as if their teacher were there, what they would be doing. And like I said, if it's something small that you're able to talk to the student and get everything settled, that's fine, do that. But if it's something that you feel like is out of your expertise, then call the office and they'll send someone down and they'll help you out with that. Do not ever feel overwhelmed and feel like you're in there all by yourself. Always call and ask for help. And just more bags of tricks. You know what? If nothing else, and you're able to get on the computer, go to Google and Google a song about multiplication or a song about nouns or whatever, and you'll find all kinds of stuff on TeacherTube or whatever that have, and just make sure it's appropriate, okay? Because you'll find stuff, what you'll find, what we used the most was when you find things that other schools have created, Because a lot of schools will create this fun stuff and then they will put it out there on TeacherTube or YouTube for you to use. So it's okay to use those things as time fillers as well. So I think we pretty much went over all the things that I'm responsible for talking to you about today. When I finish, then we're going to have Miss Stephanie Winders to come in, and she's going to talk to you about some more about the emergency procedures and health concerns, health issues, and just anything in the school that has to do with school health. And then after that, Miss Tiffany Lado will come in. She'll talk to you also about how to sign in, sign out, your pay, and all that stuff that you're probably really wondering about. She'll be able to answer those because those are not in my expertise. And so if you have any questions, and after you watch this video and you have more questions, feel free to ask us so that we can make sure that we answer all the questions that you have. Okay? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Winders. I coordinate school health for the Henry County School System. And I've been with the school system many years, and so we've started a substitute teacher training to give you some training before you go into the schools to make you feel more comfortable with what you need to do, and some of the tips that might help you out along the way. First of all, with any substitute teacher, if you don't know the school staff in the office or the administrators, go and introduce yourself to them so they can get to know you and know who they want to call. If you're just a name on a piece of paper, they might not call you, but if they can put your name with a face, they're more likely to call you. One of the things I want to talk about is when you go to the school, some of the safety things that you need to be aware of when you go into the building. First, get to know the facility. Introduce yourselves to the teachers surrounding you, who is in your grade or those who are next door to you. Be familiar with your classroom. Every classroom by the door should be emergency evacuation plan posted. Many schools even have a little emergency folder that you could grab and you would have with you. But you need to be aware of your evacuation routes. And the main thing that I'm worried about in the school system is accountability of all students. If we ever have an emergency, your job will be to make sure you have every one of those students. I worry most about the high school because it's such a large campus. I had one teacher, substitute teacher, say because she doesn't know the students, when they come in and they, throughout the class, say, I need to go to the bathroom, because she might not know that their name was Brandolyn, she would have them sign a paper and say, Brandolyn's going to the bathroom. And then she would know if anything happened, a fire drill, etc., she would take that sheet and she would see that this person's in the bathroom, this person went to the nurse. So when she evacuates, she could say, Brandolyn and Stephanie are in the nurse and she's in the bathroom. So be accountable for your students at all times. Every school has some type of intercom system. They may be a little bit different, but be familiar with them. Some have a phone on the wall, some just have a button and you can call the office. But be familiar with how do you call the office? How do you get assistance from the SRO? How do you contact the nurse? All those are good things to know. If there's ever a crisis, and a crisis, when I mean a crisis, it could be a crisis as far as the student in classrooms having a meltdown, could be a crisis in the hallway, there's a fight. One of the main things you need to remember is to stay calm. If you stay calm, then your students are going to stay calm. But if you panic, then your students are going to panic. So you're the leader in the class, so you need to remain calm. And then when you give directions to the students, they're going to follow your direction when you're leading. If you panic, then all of your students are going to panic. So stay calm. Don't ever get in a power struggle with the students. So if it's a crisis between you and the student, don't get in a power struggle. It's not worth it. Don't take it personally. Because usually you're not the problem. It's usually something at home, boyfriend, girlfriend in the hallway that happened. There's lots of things that could be the problem. So don't take it personally. Set limits in your classroom. All classrooms have rules, but make sure your limits are simple, that there's something you can enforce, and that it's reasonable for the behavior. And if you're not sure, talk to the teachers that morning. That can make your life easier if you know how to set limits. Remember, there's a lot of precipitating factors that our students go through. They might not have had a good night's sleep. They might be hungry. They might have heard their parents fight last night. They could have had a terrible bus ride. A lot of times it's something else besides what's going on in that classroom. It could be that they are failing at the task and they're frustrated, so they come out angry or aggressive, and it's because they're struggling internally to learn the materials. So take those things into consideration. And get assistance. Our school system, we are here to help each other. If you're struggling, contact another teacher. Talk to the administrators. Don't hesitate to get help. Even some of our administrators will pop in throughout the day to check and say, hey, how you doing? If you need help, you need to communicate that you need help, because we're there for you. Sometimes there'll be sicknesses or illnesses of the students in our classroom. So here's some tips you need to remember about that. If it's emergency, call the office, call the nurse, get assistance immediately. Minimal injuries, every classroom has a little bag, gloves in it, Band-Aids, minimal stuff. Instead, send them to the nurse to get a Band-Aid or check for a nail problem. Just give them a Band-Aid, tell them it's okay. Because some students just want to get out of class. So if it's minimal, take care of it. If it's something that you can't take care of, then they can go to the nurse. Every school is a little bit different. Some schools have nurse passes on a lanyard, the high school in Groveville. In the elementary schools, they all have slips, and on that slip you need to complete it. Because if a kindergartner comes to the nurse and you say, what's wrong? And she doesn't know the kid's name because her kindergartner doesn't know it, she's not going to know what's wrong, who the kid is, etc. So you need to fill out those slips and send them in K through 8 schools. That's really important. If it's something, you need to be very careful about who you send to the nurse by themselves. Because a diabetic, child with seizures, those kids need to be accompanied to the nurse. Sometimes there's a buddy system, so they can take a friend with them. And then when they get to the nurse, the friend will address the two students. The one that's ill will stay. The one that was just accompanied won't stay with the student. That student will return back to class before the other one. We have asthmatic students, and we have diabetic students in our schools. We have seizure students. We have a large array of students with medical problems. The teacher may leave you a list of the times and say that Johnny has to go to the nurse at 10:30. But if she was sick and couldn't get that on a note, sometimes the nurse will call you. Sometimes the students will just say, I need to go to the nurse at that time. We have students that are on medication. So some of them have routine time they have to go. This information is confidential, the medical information. So the teacher may not put down there at 10:30, Johnny goes to the nurse to check his glucose levels, his sugar levels. So, or they may, but just know any of that information is confidential, just like IEPs, special needs. What happens during the day is confidential and stayed at school. If there's an injury during the school day, it has to be documented. Proper paperwork has to be filled out. And so if there's not any at the table of that the teacher leaves for you, then the nurse will send you one. The incident report is filled out by the teacher or the one who sees it. And if you didn't see it, but you were over it, then you have to fill out the incident report. So let's say on the playground, child falls and busts their lip. You send them to the nurse. Well, the nurse later will send you an incident report so you can put down what you saw and what happened. Or if you didn't see it, you just know, this is what was reported to me. I didn't see it happen, and I sent the child to the nurse. But the documentation is very important. If the nurse doesn't fill out the documentation, the teacher who's responsible or the first person on the scene fills out that information. Alright, so that's all the information about nursing. I just want to reiterate one more time, confidentiality is the utmost important no matter what happens during the day. And if you're not sure about the students' behaviors or medical, you need it for reasonings of teaching the class, then that will be shared with you. So, Other thing that I want to share about that we've had questions over in the past is, what if they notice there's some type of abuse of the child? I wanted to share with you our policy on that. By law, any adult who works with children has to report if they suspect child abuse. So if I'm the substitute teacher and I think Susie has some signs and I'm not comfortable, she has a bruise on her face or whatever, then I'm liable for reporting. I can't leave a note for the teacher and say, I noticed Susie has this big bruise, you need to report it. The responsibility comes on you. So that's important. There's a number that can be called. You can go to the guidance counselor and they'll help you call that number. But you're the one responsible. Witnesses shall not be brought together and write down any of their stories. So if a child tells you something one time, you don't have that child go to the guidance counselor and repeat it. You don't have them go to the nurse and repeat it. You don't have them go to the principal and repeat it. Because then they're not likely to repeat it when DCS comes. So remember that. When you report, it is confidential. You are protected because we're advocating for the well-being of that child. So you'll have a sheet that tells you procedures to do if you should suspect any child abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect. So you would know how to handle that. And as I said, there are people in the school system to help you through that, but it would be your duty to do so. Along with the last thing that I want to share with my job with CoreNet School Health, our whole purpose in CoreNet School Health is to eliminate barriers to learning. So we have different things in the school system that help that. Kids get antsy, so they need brain energizers. You'll get a sheet with some suggestions. It's great fillers. Gets rid of their energy. There's a nurse at every school. There are guidance counselors at every school. There's a group of people. There's a group of people that can help you. So don't hesitate to ask anybody. Thank you. Have a great day.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Lyda, and I'm the Director of Human Resources and Benefits here at the district. And so I just wanted to go over a few items, and I think some of these you already have been given today. So if you'll go ahead and get out the packet of information that you've been given. The first item in the packet that I'm going to go over is the W-4. It's going to look like this. Hopefully you can see that information if you're watching by video. But you will just fill out your W-4 as normal. Everything in sections 1 and 2 need to be completed. And then boxes 3 and 5 are what are required boxes. And then you'll drop down and sign and date. The next information that you are given looks like this. It is called an I-9. This is a required form by the federal government for us to keep in a personnel file here, and it's just to verify that you are a citizen of the United States. So if you'll fill out everything in section 1, hopefully check that you're a citizen, and then drop down middle of the page and you will sign and date it there. Along with this form, we'll ask before you leave today to get a copy of your driver's license and Social Security card, which have to be attached to this form. The next form that you're going to have in your packet is the direct deposit form. We pay by direct deposit. We pay on the 15th of every month. And when you're paid on the 15th, you're paid for the work that you've completed through the end of the month prior. So if today is October 15th and we were to pay you, then you're being paid for the work that you completed September 1 through September 30th. This is the direct deposit form. There it is for those of you that are watching this by video. You will complete that top information there on job title. You can just list substitute, and then you'll list your bank name, your routing number, and your account number. And then if it's going into a checking account, you would mark C, or if it's a savings account, you would mark S. All of those different blanks that are listed there would be if you wanted to put this into numerous different accounts. For most folks, it would just be that one account. You would need to attach a voided check. If you have an account where you do not have checks, then you'll need to get something from your bank that tells us the account number and routing number. We aren't able to deposit into like a bank card. If you just have a card and it's not with a bank, then we aren't able to deposit into those. But if you have a bank account with a routing number and account number, then that should work. And it's better if we can attach a voided check. If you don't have that, then make sure that you have something on your bank's letterhead with your account and routing number. I'll go ahead and go over pay information at this point. We pay based on a daily rate, and it's based on what type of college or high school experience that you have. If you do not have any college experience, you're coming in with a high school diploma, then we're going to pay you $58 a day. If you have 1 year of college experience, you're paid at $59 a day. 2 years is $61. 3 years is $64. And 4 years or a college degree is paid at $68 a day. We get this information based off of the application that you fill out. So if that information changes, then you'll need to make sure that you notify us and give us some type of documentation that maybe you've completed another year of college, or whatever that case may be. Or if you feel like maybe your application isn't up to date, you want to make sure that you do that before you leave today, so that when we do pay you, we're paying you based off of the correct daily rate. We receive information on how you work from the secretaries at each school building. So they obviously are calling you to sub, and when they do, they record that information, and that's how we pay you. And from time to time, we do make mistakes. So if something comes up and you feel like you worked today but you did not receive compensation for that, feel free to call us here at the central office. You will either speak with myself or Cheryl Wilson in payroll, and then we will go back and speak with the secretary at the school level and see where the issue is, if there is one. Okay, so that covers your pay information. The last two things in your packet, you should have two things left. One is this paper here. It's titled New Health Insurance Marketplace Coverage. It looks like that if you're looking at the video. This is something that we're required by federal law to make sure that you have. And this is just because you're considered a part-time employee for our district, you do not qualify for health insurance. And because of that, we're required by federal law to inform you on how to get marketplace insurance if you need that. So this document tells you how to go to the marketplace and access the insurance if you need it. We do consider you part-time employees. That means that you aren't to work over 28 hours a week or 120 hours in a month. And we do ask that you assist us in watching those hours and making sure that you do not go over those hours. We do monitor that, but it always helps if we have an extra set of eyes, and you will know when you're working. So if you can make sure that you're not doing that, that would assist us in a large way. Then the last thing that you have in your packet is the substitute fingerprinting reimbursement form. All of you have been printed by the district, and when you went for fingerprinting, you had to pay the fee for that, and you should have gotten a small receipt for that. It's about a postcard size. If you will make sure that you keep that, our board policy states that we reimburse you for that fingerprinting after you have subbed for us for 10 days. And so, in order to help us keep up with that and monitor that, we just ask that you fill out this form. And for the first 10 days that you sub, you will just list the date that you subbed, the school that you subbed at, and then that building level secretary will sign off on those first 10 days that you subbed. Even if you sub at Harrelson one day and the next day you sub at Henry, just have the Harrelson secretary sign off the first day, the Henry secretary sign off the next day until you reach those 10 days. And once you complete those 10 days, then you will sign and date it at the bottom and attach that postcard size fingerprinting receipt. And you can either send it through school mail. All of the schools send through inter-office school mail. You can just check with the building level secretary and say, I would like to send this to the central office through school mail, and they can do that for you. Or if you would like to drop by, we're here from 8 to 4 p.m. every day, so you can always drop this off with the receptionist and she will get it to the appropriate place. This reimbursement is paid by check. It does not come through on payroll, so you will receive a paper check at your home address to be reimbursed for this. And that is all I have for today. I appreciate you all being here and you all watching the video and being willing to sub for our district. We certainly need subs, so if you know someone that would like to sub, and please get with us. We take sub applications at all times. Thank you.